So hopefully everyone is doing well today. This is our second session. And if you're new to the factory, the co-create design factory, you can check out the recording. It's on YouTube and Bilibili. And if you don't have the recording, you can send me a message in here in Zoom chat. Actually, why don't I just post it right now? Give me 1 second. Move this right here. Wait, I actually don't have it. Never mind. I'll post it later if you guys need it. So this is just a general review, like a timeline of what we're going to be doing. So it's 5:33 now, so we can start. Basically, we're going to do a kind of a very brief review of what we did last time, which were some like really simple stuff. So for example, like 2D line sketching. And there were some, hopefully everyone got the practice that we have here. Can you see my screen, please? Rhino? David?
Yeah,
You can see it,
your
right?
screen.
Okay, cool. Sounds good. So basically all we worked on last time is kind of how, first of all, how you can get the software. And then we went into all of the basic settings that you need. So in this case, you can see, I'm just gonna do it again. If you're on Windows, you have these settings that you should turn on. So that includes grid snap and no snap. And then you just click all of these check marks. Doesn't actually, you can skip. Okay, so make sure you have these settings on. And what they do, they make your life really convenient. Basically, when you try, so last time we talked about points and lines. And when you try to draw a point, notice how after you have these settings turned on, so now it's off, now it's on. When this is highlighted, you can actually see that your point is going to be created onto your end or intersection. Also, I remember last time that someone requested like a kind of like a subtitle. I'm actually not sure how to turn it on.
Live transcript.
Live transcript.
Yes.
Participants. Okay, that's fine. So yeah, my words are at the bottom now. Actually, here, so they
Actually don't see it right now.
Oh, you don't see it? Why do I see it? Who can see this transcript? Transcript only, only say that. Oh, it's at the
click
end.
on the live transcript.
Okay. Oh, thank you. Live transcript. Interesting. You see it now? Hide name and narrative.
I see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Sounds good. Okay. So going back to what I was saying, like snap, very just your point snap on your edges. And it's not only the end points or the edges of a rectangle, it could also be like the midpoint, if you can see here. So yeah, that's I guess the first setting that you would want to make your life a lot more convenient. And then we talked about basically when you first go into Rhino, you have your 4 views. So you have your 3D view, and then you have your 3 2D views, which is by default top, front, and right. So in this case, I basically made this into kind of like a sheet of paper. And when you look at it from the top, and basically how you click into the floor, click into one of the specific viewports, just by double clicking your letter here. So left click, double click, and then now you zoom in. So this is like a sheet of paper. And when you look at it, basically you can see that it's a rectangle. And if we go back to like perspective mode, you can rotate it around. This makes it identical to a sheet of paper like that. So let's go back to top. And basically we learned a lot 2D last time. So there are points, lines, polylines. I'm gonna actually jump straight into polylines because I kind of assume that everyone knows like what a point is. Basically you just make a point like that, right? And you can use line to connect it. Polylines, on the other hand, actually it's like similar to line and points. It basically connects, it does 2 steps in one. So it draws a point and connects a line. Doing that. So that was kind of a, well, very not uniform shape, but you could also make rectangles. So for example, like that. But you can make triangles like that. Or there are commands, simple command called rectangle, which allows you to get your first corner, your second corner. You have a rectangle. And basically, polyline is kind of like your fundamentals in 3D model, because you can outline your you can you can make basically your shape of what you're gonna make, and then you can kind of just expand your idea. But first, it's kind of like drawing. When you're drawing, you make a rough sketch of what you're going to draw. So if you want to draw a face, right, you have to draw like the outlines, your contour, and then your hair, where your eyes are going to be. This is the same as polylines. If you want to make a, actually, I'm not going to make an example. I'm going to do that when we're there in the 3D modeling part. And then we talked about curves. Curves are basically just more complicated lines. So there were two types of curves. There's one that when you draw something, notice how your point does not end up on the curve. So you can, let's say, draw first full circle like that. And then you can see where I clicked. Basically, I clicked there and your curve revolved around this point right here. This is the one way to make a curve. But the one that we use most often is the command called intercurve. And if you can't remember all of the commands that are right here for you, I actually can I have the steps for you. So the intercurve is right here in quotation marks. Basically, the difference between normal curve and intercurve is when you draw something, you can actually see that your curve and the point, they overlap. So that's really good if you want exact and accurate curves. Let's say we have a rectangle here. Oh yeah, by the way, you also have some command shortcuts right here, so you don't have to type rectangle. And just click the rectangular shape over here. And back to intercurve. Oops, actually, okay. In intercurve. So let's say your startup curve is here. And you're trying to make your curve tangent to the edge of your rectangle. If you don't know what tangent is, it basically just touching the edge of the rectangle. You can do that very easily with intercurve. And then you can either press shift to cut off the line like that. Or if you do a full revolve around, like for example, you can do a full circle like that, and the command's gonna end automatically. So you can see that at this point, essentially your curve and your rectangle overlap. Yeah, so that's two ways to make curves. Hopefully, and if you have any questions, just type in the chat. I'm sure David and should be able to help you, or I'll be able to help you, or you can open your mic. Either is fine. And then we moved on to control points, which is just for example, let's try to make a complicated curve. And the more times you click, basically, the more points are going to be on that curve, and the more complicated it will be. And if you want to cut off, you just press shift. So, and that's when you have these snap commands on, you can also see that the line ends exactly on the edge. Yeah, so that's a way to make more accurate modeling. So let's say I have this spiky curve here. And when I click on it with my left key, you can see that it highlights in yellow. And there's like these weird, what's called more spiky lines that lead to these points. And you can actually click on each individual point, not the lines, only the points. So if you click on it, actually, I don't have gumball on. Notice how I can't really see anything besides the point. So if I go down here into settings, so right here, oops, and for Mac user, it's probably at the top somewhere. You can click gumball to turn this on. And now notice that when you click on this point, you have these direction arrows. And what they do is that if we click on the red arrow, and basically it's gonna move in the in the x-axis only. So this allows us to make things essentially move straight or parallel to a certain axis. And if you don't have gumball on, so let's say you don't use the arrows, we turn them off. You can only see this point. Actually, it's yellow. You can't even see it that well, but we can, it's actually very hard. If you want to move it in a straight line, notice how like kind of you're not like sure because this looks kind of straight and this looks as well. But the only way to know for sure is when you have gumball and you use this arrow. Okay. And these points are called control points because you can interpret it as like they control what the curve looks like. And if you move them, your curve is going to shift. So let's say, let's get rid of our spiky thing here. Actually, let's use a kind of closed shape. So like a circle, but not really, like this. So again, you have these control points, and now it kind of looks like a uniform circle. But if I click on one of these points, and let's say I move this control point, I stretch it to the right, and then you can see how it turned into like an egg shape. If I grab this point and shift to the left, see that now it's even more stretched out. So that's what control points can do. They basically, when you move your control points, you modify your curves. Okay, so hopefully everyone is clear with 2D and well, actually, yeah, just 2D. We're moving on to 3D after. So everyone's good with that? And then now we're going to talk about 3D curves. This is essentially a transition from all the 2D sketching into your next practice assignment. Oh, chat message. Can you share this document? Yes, I believe I sent an email, but I'll put it in the chat right now. Oh,
We are,
picture.
it will probably be a good idea to put it in the Discord server too.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so that's the practice 1, which we talked about last time. And then I was just doing a general review. And then we have the second one. Oh, David, if you want to put up the Discord link, it's fine. Thanks. Oh, okay, that's practice 2. Okay, send it to everyone. And you just you can just download it and open this with the Rhino that you have, which should be Rhino 7. And I also, if you don't have Rhino, I also have a tutorial in the YouTube link. So just tell me if you don't have the YouTube link. The link basically tells you how to get the app. Okay, now we're going to talk about 3D curves. And let's, oh, I wish I still had that spiky. There we go. Let's move, actually let's copy. So if you remember the copy command, oh, basically everything you enter in Rhino is going to be in your top left corner, which kind of for some commands, it gives you step by step. Like for example, copy. First, it asks you to select your object to copy. So if I want to copy this object, I just press that, and then it says press enter when done. So after I selected the spiky shape, I press enter. And now notice how the command changed. Now it says point to copy from. So yeah, you have different steps, just like how I have like steps right here. You have the Rhino gives you different steps. And also a really convenient feature is I'm gonna move my thing over here because the camera is kind of blocking it. When you do a command, your Rhino is kind of new, you should have this help place to the right. And basically what this does, let's say I want to use a command called I guess circle something. No, circle is not a command. Oh, oops. So let's say I do command circle. It basically gives you like a very detailed overview of how you can make a circle. So if you don't understand some commands, you could check the recording, or Rhino is very nice because it gives you all of these explanations. And certainly they probably explain it better than me. So yeah, if you're ever confused about something, Rhino is always there to guide you through it. Okay, so copy, point, and then that's our second step, point to copy from. We're gonna copy it from this point because there is a good, what is it called? Like it's a good reference point. So we click on this edge and then we drag, using our right key, we can drag, oops. Going to copy to, copy again. point to copy from is here. Actually, let me just minimize this. Here we go. Using the right key, we can drag it down into here. Enter. And now we have our spiky shape here. It tells us to make sure we're in perspective 3D mode. This is where we click out because we're in top right now. We're going to go into perspective. And you can see that we were essentially drawing lines on a piece of paper. But if you want to make 3D curves, you're going to have to switch to perspective mode. And another very convenient feature, notice how I'm kind of struggling with zooming into my curve. A very easy way to do this is just select your curve. See, it's highlighted in yellow and type ZS. This stands for zoom selection. Oops. Zoom selection, but it's just breathed into ZS. So enter, and it just zooms in to whatever you're selected. Basically, we can still see when we select the curve our control points. And if we try to click on one of them, we can see that in addition to actually, yeah, you can see the blue arrow. There's also these red and green arrows. They're still here, but now you have this blue arrow, which basically kind of helps you with the movement in the Z-axis, which is where you extrude outwards. We're out of the paper, so we can hold on to this arrow and drag it up. And notice how the yellow outline kind of shifts. I mean, not the curve basically shifts up with your control point. And now if we look at it from the side, we can see that this line is essentially floating. So that's how you make a how do you make a 3D curve. And you can, so similarly, you can do some other control points like that. And you actually don't have to move it all upwards. So let's say so now the whole curve is selected. We can move everything up. And then let's say I just want this curve to move down a bit like that. So it's essentially a more dynamic shape like that. Yeah, so you get the idea. Basically for control points, we can adjust them however we like, and the curve is going to shift along with it. Yeah, and this just helps you to understand the concepts of what a 3D curve is. And I'm gonna, okay, anyone have any questions with this? You can type in the chat. Okay. Hopefully everyone's doing good. And then we're gonna jump. We're gonna jump right into the second exercise, which is also in the Zoom chat. So you can see that there's one file titled practice1.3dm, and there's another one titled practice2.3dm. Okay, so we're gonna go here. Okay, this is where we look more into the 3D commands. Basically, you have to make sure that you're in perspective mode. If you have something like that, just double click this. Okay, so we're gonna go zoom into the first command. And if anyone doesn't remember the navigation, it just when you're in 2D, when you're in 2D like that. So move around is right click, and to select something is left click. So it's pretty simple, but in perspective mode, if you use the right key to move around, you actually rotate. So notice how there's like what's called like an orb thing on my cursor right here. You actually rotate around your current camera. Basically, if you're like way over here and you want to go to some certain command that lies over here, you have to hold your shift and right click. So that's how you move around. And also, since this practice might be a little harder, there's a template here just for you to look at. But don't if you're doing this, don't copy exactly what the template is doing. Okay, but the first one is very straightforward. It's just a box, which is essentially a 3D rectangular prism. Okay, all you have to do is to type box, box.
一定要带了，不离手，好吗？能拿吗？
Okay, box, enter, and it gives you steps. So your first corner of base, And for box command, oh, I don't have the snap things on. So when you don't have the snappy things on, basically you can see how like I'm not able to select the edge of my other box. Now I have to turn this on. These and click. And I wonder why it's not on by default, but that's fine. Okay, so now you can see that end, it shows you that this end intersection. And basically you just draw a rectangle like that as such. So click left click. And then what's different is that it actually gives you, let's turn off center. Okay, it actually gives you your height. So if we mimic how high our black box is here, we press it like that. And now you can see that we've made a kind of like a connection, like a box connection between your two templates here. So yeah, very simple. And boxes, they don't have to be, well, you can, well, what I mean by that is you can have any dimensions you want. So you can make like a really skinny box, but really tall like that. Yeah, so just play around with that, but you do have a, you cannot, so this is, since this is like a really simple command, you can have different width on sides, if you know what I mean. It has to, you need to have a specific proportion, so you have your lengths, your width, and your height. Okay, so that's box. Let's move on to the next command, which is planar surface. I think I went over a bit of this last time. So for planar surface, anything that has the word planar means 2D. So maybe just that's a important thing that you can memorize. So planar is 2D. And let's say, since we learned to draw with polylines, let's make a polyline shape. So let's say, I guess like a trapezoid, but it's not a good trapezoid. Actually, it's not even a trapezoid. Let's do a triangle. Oops, how did it change the boxes? Oh, okay. So you could do that. Yeah, good catch. That's a pretty important thing. So now I don't have gumbo on in this file, so just turn it on right here. Basically, there are two ways you can do it. You could either type the command for changing in size, or you can do a shortcut. They're actually okay. I'm just gonna make this not confusing because there are two ways that you can change the size of it. Either you distort the proportion, or you make it larger but keep the proportion. So let's say okay, let me do a demonstration. So we have two boxes here, but they're exactly the same, right? Actually, let's have three boxes. So we have three boxes here. Just copy and paste it over. There we go. And this is going to be 1, 1, 2, 3. This is going to be our original box and that we're not going to change. And let's say we want to make this just bigger. Let's move this over here. Okay, sounds good. So the way to do this is by command scale. Just simply scale. If we use the command, select this object to scale, enter, and your base point. It actually doesn't matter. The only thing you need to know about base point is that wherever you click as your base point, it doesn't move. So if I choose this corner as my base point, you can notice that it stays kind of on the same axis as the corner here. And you see, so your base point is here, and you have a scale factor, which actually where you can use the reference point. And let's say your reference point is this edge over here. So we click it, and then you can see that it basically got a lot larger, so like that. But notice how, see, our base point is this edge over here, right? I'm just gonna drop a point on it. So it's a very small point, but okay. So that's our base point. And it's still on the same axis as this box, or original box over here. So that's one way to make it larger, but you still have the same proportions. How do I explain it? Basically, let's assume that the height is times 2, and so everything actually is no, actually it's a prism, but basically everything is times 2. However, on the other hand, there is another command that you can scale, which is called scale 1D. Basically what this does, and don't worry about scale 2D for now, scale 1D, when you enter the command, you select this object to scale, such. You also have a base point. Okay, let's say that's, again, this is our base point, and it's gonna land the same on the axis. And so now you have to select your other reference point. Let's say we do the same. And you can notice how, oh, actually, that's not a good reference point. Let's do that command again. Object to scale. Basically, this command scale 1D is going to change your proportions. And you can see that we have our base point and our first reference point. And then you can see essentially this got stretched out. So like that. And this means that we only changed. So again, if I repeat the command, our base point and first reference point, you can see that this line, which is the line that connects our base point to the first reference point. This, how do I visualize this? So this line over here, this line is the only thing that changed about the rectangle, while your height and the width, I guess. Yeah, the width, they stay the same. So just visualize that better. So you can see that this line got stretched out, while the height didn't change and the width didn't change. Yeah, so that's some basic ways that you can resize an object. Oh, just type scale in the command place because it's the only where you can type. Actually, you can type here, but your command is always going to be here. So type scale. Or yes, there's scale 1D, there's scale 2. No, let's actually look at scale 2. I'm actually not sure what it is. Okay, don't worry about this. This is not very. So yeah, for now, just remember scale without anything, just simply scale and scale 1D. Scale is the one that keeps the proportions, makes the object, well, look the same, doesn't distort anything. This is, and then this is the one that changes your proportions. Okay, hopefully that answers Rachel's questions. And now we're gonna go to planar surface. And yeah, so as I mentioned before, planar means 2D. And let's say we have a rectangle, I mean a triangle here. We have our triangle here. It's very simple. All you have to do is to type planar surface. Surface is shortened to surf. Enter. So select your planar curves. Notice how it says planar curves, which means that the curve you select must be a 2D curve. So let's select this. So enter for next command. Oh, actually, no, it just finished the command. So you can see basically it created a surface between our lines. And am I recording? Okay, I am. It created a surface between our lines. And you can do that with any 2D shape. Let's say we want to make a small circle here. We can use planar surface again, and it basically filled in our circle. Another thing to keep in mind is that these are actually I didn't make them. I want to make them flat for demonstration. Oh yeah, this setting here, when you turn planar on, notice how before my shape was like that, right? But it's still a 2D shape because you just kind of rotate it, if you know what I mean. Actually, let's not talk about that. Okay, go back to 3D. I mean, go back to 2D. Okay, not curve, polyline. Let's make the same right triangle here, as such. So notice how it's just completely 2D. And when you look at it from the side, it kind of turns into a line like that. Basically, we select the curve and type planar surface, enter, and it created this here. Let's get back to our circles. Make a, let's say we make a circle, planar surface. Yeah, so that's how you basically fill in your line. And you can do that with any geometrical shape or organic shape. So we learned about intercurves. we can make a curve like that. So let's say we want let's make two curves. So one is like that. So it's like a circle. Actually, let's make it like that. That's pretty nice. And let's make another one that just looks like an arc, like that. And you press Shift to cut the line off. So now we have two curves, which well, there are actually if we use the command planner surf on this, because it works on geometrical shapes and organic shapes, you should fill in this. And this line here, this X or plus sign here, basically it means it's kind of like pixels. It means how complicated your shape is. And the more lines you have, basically the more pixels, or the more complex your shape is. And okay, so let's move on to this curve, which is not a enclosed curve, but if we use planar surface enter, it's going to give us a message that there was no faces or surfaces made because it must be closed. And if you think about it, it actually makes sense, because if the AI wants to fill in your curve, since this part is open, it doesn't know when, like, kind of where to cut off your shape. So in this case, you're gonna have to either, if you have an open shape, you're gonna have to either close it like that with a line or with a curve, or you have to, I guess, make a new shape. But one thing to keep in mind, right, is that it's not always going to be this obvious. So when you're making something, let's say you're making this curve here, and if you don't have these snap options on, so let me just turn off for a second, you actually the system doesn't show you whether it's clicked on or not. So if I put it here, right, and click enter to cut off, like from far away, it might seem that your surface is closed, but if you zoom in, you can see that there's actually a gap, which kind of gives you an error on the planar surface, like that. Yeah, so just be very careful that you have these settings on. It makes your life a lot easier. Okay, so that's planar surface. Hopefully everyone is doing good. And now we're gonna move on to extrude curve. So planar surface is a 2D command, but extrude curve brings your curve. Well, I hope everyone knows what extrude means. Basically, like, if you have extrusion, it's like you move or you create, you're stretching something from 2D into 3D. That's how I understand it. So let's say we have, let's make some interesting shape, like a I guess, parallelogram. This should work, whatever. Actually, it's not interesting, but yeah. So if we have this shape here, or this curve here, we can apply the command extrude curve. So just type over here, extrude CRV, extrude CRV, enter. And select your curves, this one, enter, and your extrusion distance. And I briefly mentioned that there are two ways that you can make measurements in Rhino. Either you can eyeball it, so like what I'm doing right here. So for example, I want to make like this tall because I'm just feeling like it. Or another way is if we repeat the command, you can actually type how long you want it to be. So if you're making really kind of accurate modeling, like if you're, let's say you're making a house, you kind of don't want your ceiling to be like 20 meters up, right? So this also depends on your dimensions. So I think I'm in inches. If you type like 10, notice how the shape is exactly 10 inches high. And then if I move to like 20, 20 is 2 times as 10. So now it's here. Let's just make it like 15. Enter. Now we know that for sure that your extruded shape is exactly 15 inches tall. And basically what this did, if you really want to understand the concept between extrude curve, it kind of just copy and pasted. So a lot of the same shape. So what I'm doing right now, basically an infinite number of shapes, and it kind of just connected all of them. But if you don't understand what I just said, it's fine. So now basically all you have to know is that I have a 2D shape, I stretch it, and now it's 3D. Okay, extrude curve. Oh, there we go. And so it doesn't, yeah, again, with just like planar surface, it doesn't have to be any uniform shape. You could have a really weird say spherical shape like that, like a puddle, and you will still be able to extrude this. Sure. Let's say we make the extrusion distance like 5. Oh, 5. Okay. So there it is. So we have our kind of looks like a cookie mold, but yeah. So that's how you extrude your 3D curves. There are also like really minor subcommands. So for example, like both sides. So this is, we'll figure out what this is called. I just call it your toolbar. Basically, you have your both sides equals no right now, but if you click on it, the text changes to yes. And now you can see that your curve is going to be extruding, see both sides. Very interesting. And then you have your, what else? Surface. So yes, solid, yes or no. This is so right now solid is yes. Basically, when you make something, see, oh, you can see a difference. So for this one here, you actually have a cap over it. But whereas for this one, it's kind of just hollow. And all you have to do is just set solid. So you want your command to create a solid, or you can just cap it. Like if you want this shape to be a solid, you just select it and then type the command cap. I don't know what it stands for, cap. Yeah, it's just cap, enter, and you can see the system made these two surfaces for you, top and bottom. Yeah, interesting things. And let's see. Oh, you can also extrude 3D curves. Let's see. Let's go back to this. So remember how to make a 3D curves. Click your control points, move them up and down like that. And you're welcome to try on your own. This is just me playing around with your curves. So here, it's up here. So now we have a 3D curve. Squiggly line, except it's in the 3D mode. And then we're gonna use extrude curve. And it's still gonna make shape. And this is because your command, ooh, that's cool. This is because your command doesn't have 2D in it. Let's say extrude curve, make the distance like 10. Or if you wanted to extrude down, you can type -10. So like that, -10, enter. That's how it went down. So that's your original curve. And it basically created a surface down. Let's do it again. To like 10. Okay. So it kind of looks like that. So now you have your somewhat complicated. And this is called a poly surface, because poly stands for many. Basically, actually a box is a poly surface. If you think about it, right? You have a box here. You have many surfaces that are in 2D and 3D. The making up this shape, that's why it's called a poly surface. Okay, now we can, I guess that's all for extrude curves. So command 1 to 3 are really fundamental commands for you to understand how to transform 2D shapes into 3D. And now Loft might be a little hard to understand, but so you might be thinking like, why are these like weird curves here, right? Basically what Loft is, so LOFT, this is a command for you to make, well, it opens up a lot more possibilities, because essentially for extrude curve, let's go back to extrude curve for a second. When you're making a shape, a poly surface from an extrude curve, you're essentially just getting kind of like a 2D shape and just moving them straight up. You don't really get any variations, see? Because your top and bottom are going to be the same. But again, if you're looking to make something from extrude curve, it might work. But Loft is a lot more interesting. And a good example of Loft is, let's say, it's a coffee cup. Yes, I do that example a lot. So we all know what a coffee cup looks like. It's like, it starts very at the top is very wide and it kind of narrows down. So we need 2 circles. So let's say 1 is here. I'm gonna exaggerate it a bit. And you might say like, how can I make 2 circles line up, right? Because the coffee cup is kind of a, what is it called? Like symmetrical thing. And if you just randomly make 2 circles here, right? And then move this up, this is gonna be kind of like, if you connect these 2 circles, it's gonna be tilted. This is where this command comes in, it's called center mark. Basically, you can click it, actually type center mark first, enter, select your curve to apply your center mark. So since this is a uniform circle, we know that the center must be, well, in the center. So enter, so we click on the curve and now you see this plus sign. And where it intersects, so which is this point here, that is going to be the center of your entire circle. And now we can make another command, actually let's type circle because people might not know where the shortcut is. So if we type circle, enter, there are multiple ways to make a circle, but the most used way is center of circle. So you start from the center and you kind of estimate the radius. And we know the top is going to be, it's going to have a longer radius. Let's just do this. So now we have 2 circles. We just have to drag on the z-axis arrow up as such, like that. So now that we have these 2 circles. Let's do a kind of like a easy demonstration of this is where the loft command comes in. And I'm actually not sure what loft means. Basically, you can see that when you use loft, you want to select your curves to loft, right? So let's select these 2 circles and see what happens. So press enter. You can see how it draws this line. Basically, it's going to draw this line kind of everywhere, and it connects your circle. And don't worry, don't drag this line for now. Just leave it where it is. And if you press enter, press OK, you can leave all of these alone for now. You can see that you have your coffee mug, basically, because see the top circle is bigger, the bottom is smaller. And if you loft this is different from, let's just extract this out. This is very different from extrude curve because you can see, right? Even if I make it the same height, let's make it not solid so that it's a little comparable. Actually, let's make it, let's use a bigger curve. Yeah. Like that, extrude, curve down. And you can match the height just by clicking on the bottom point of view. Okay. So you can see this is, these are actually a lot different because if you use extrude curve, which is command 2, is it? No, it's command 3. Yeah, if we use extrude curve, you can see that the top and bottom have the same circles and essentially just a line. This is a cylinder. Yeah, it's called a cylinder. And whereas this one, kind of like a cone, right? Your outline or your edge is tilted inwards based on the different sizes. And actually, I think it's time to have a break. But maybe if you're like, you don't want to go anywhere for the break, you can try making a coffee cup from using your loft command. Basically, just make sure that I'm going to put this in steps. So you guys can try it out. Oops, okay, here. Just make your 2 circles and make sure you get a center mark so that their axes are aligned. Brief kind of here. So you can see that I drew this line because that is your center of axis. And just use the loft command by selecting your 2 circles. Yeah, so everyone can try that, I guess. And we're gonna have a break right now. So we'll be back in 5 minutes. Okay, so it's at 6:21. Okay, so you can either work on this or take your break. Okay, I'm gonna put a timer somewhere. Okay. Okay, so enjoy your breaks. Okay. So I just realized that 5 minutes might not be enough. So I think we'll have a second break. Maybe after we do some of the, yeah, some of the rest. I'll just give it a minute for everyone to come back. Okay. Okay. Cool. And then we're gonna, yeah, so just modeling your cup. If you have any questions, you can ask in the chat and hopefully everyone can hear me. Yeah, okay, mic is on. All right. So Loft, yeah, that's a brief overview of Loft. Now we're gonna get kind of into the real command because you can do a lot more stuff with Loft than making copy cuts. So actually, I'm gonna leave it right here just for reference. And if anyone asks for the steps, also why are there two twos? Okay, for Loft, what I want you to do for this command, right? It's feel free to kind of, so you can see that I have 8 curves in total. So you have the 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 on the top, and there's a hidden one here. So 1, 2, 3, 4 on the bottom. Basically, control point is kind of what we're working with. So if you have this point, right, and you click on it, you make sure you have your gumball down. You can actually modify the curve a bit. So these white curves are actually editable. And let's say you want this to kind of stretch it out like that, and then make it up. Yes, yeah. So modify it however you like, because your loft shape is going to change accordingly. And if I use command loft here, and let's select all of these 4 shapes of loft. Hopefully it doesn't, because I kind of did random curves. Hopefully it makes a surface. Oh, it kind of tangled. Well, in this case, you just have to kind of modify it further and just to test around, for example, which, oh, I see the problem. Basically, this is kind of inverted. So let's just do that. Okay, so now if we loft, let's just modify it a bit more like that. Try the loft command. Select these 4 top curves, 1, 2, 3, 4, enter. Okay, now you can see that a very complicated shape has actually a very complicated surface has been created, but it's still tangled. I'm not sure why. Let's try the bottom one. Maybe we'll have luck with the bottom one. So loft 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, this should work. Oh, it's not working. Let's see. Let's make. Oh, okay. Let's make this somewhere here. Loft. Okay, you know what? We're gonna do 2 curves, loft 2 curves for now. And we'll go. Oh, okay, that didn't work. Let's try this. These 2. Oh, well, I guess my Rhino is broken, but you should have, like, let's just make one on the spot because I guess maybe it's an old template that I made. Let's say I have, let's say this one here, and I have another one, which makes it a little different, looks like that. So kind of 2 S's here. And if you see this arc here, you can actually drag it to rotate your curve. Then if I want it to rotate 90 degrees, I can hold shift. I mean, actually I can like just do this, right? But if I want it exact 90 degrees, I can hold shift. So that's 180, that's 90 degrees like that. Or another way to do it is to, if you click using your left click onto this arc here, you can actually type 90. So let's type 90. And yeah, it makes a rotation based on the value you put. So if you want to do 180, right? Shape is just going to flip 180 degrees, but we want 90. So as such, 90. This one also as well. And when you hover over your right kind of command or your right arc, it's going to turn black. So 90 like that. And I think this should work. Actually, I should turn this 180 because, okay. So if we try to loft this, type in loft, select your 2 curves, Okay, and now you can see that a surface has been made between your curves. And basically it is going to be well, a rather complicated shape because you have your two not uniform curves. So this one here, that one in yellow, and this one in yellow. So these two, and what Rhino does with Loft basically draws straight lines between and kind of creates a surface that resembles kind of, you can think about it as it merges two surfaces together. And yeah, so that's Loft. You can play around with this, but I guess the really useful way of like thinking about it is just coffee mug. You have two circles and you join lines. But yeah, but you can have some really, really complicated shapes like that. And yeah, so the problem I was having here is that your surface actually tangles up. So for example, I have my two surfaces here, right? So if I should loft these two, well, not the rectangle, these, enter. Oh, now it works now. I don't know why. Okay, let's try the entire thing then off. We select these four curves, and you can select multiple curves. And you can sort of predict what the curve is going to be like. So it draws this line from one curve, so straight line into the second curve, and then straight line into the third curve, and then so on. And you can see that, okay, so basically what I was talking about is that when you have kind of random shapes, your curve or your surface made gets tangled up. And this is where you need to modify your curves. So I believe that the middle one was working quite well. So these two, yeah, so there are essentially a lot of variations of curves that you can create to make these surfaces. Okay, so that's Loft. And another thing to keep in mind is that the more complicated your curve is, that will lead to a more complicated Loft. So let's say, oh yeah, complicated is defined by essentially the amount of times that you click. So now I clicked a lot of times, right? So because there are a lot of dots. So we have this curve and then another complicated curve. Like that. So you revolve these 9 degrees. That, and we try Loft. I believe this will turn out to be a very complicated shape, but tangled up again, but it's okay. This is like bad demonstration. But the meaning is that you can see if we select the curve, you have all these control points. And remember when we talked about these lines on your surface, they're essentially pixels, so they make your shape more complicated. That's what I mean. And in Rhino, more complicated doesn't always mean better because it takes up more room, right? If you have a higher quality video, it's going to take up more room, but it's also going to be clearer. However, in Rhino, you can't really see what the difference is between complicated shapes and not complicated shapes. If you try to render, which means to put color or put lighting on. Okay, so that's Loft. Hopefully no one has any questions. Yeah, so in this template and these curves are included. You can also make your own curves. You don't have to be limited to the curves that I made. And yeah, so Loft surfaces. Let's get rid of that. And that. So, okay. And let's move on to sweep. Basically, sweep, there are two kinds of sweeps. Let's get rid of this coffee here. And I'm gonna not use this template because actually I'll go back to it later. Okay. There is sweep 1 and sweep 2. As you can see here, there's sweep 1 and the sweep 2 here. Basically, sweep revolves. Actually, it'd be better with a demonstration. Okay. If you make kind of a, say we have a very simple curve, right? Like that. And okay, before we talk about sweep, we should learn about cross sections. Wait, see them? well, actually, I had a really cool way to demonstrate this, but I guess I'll remember it maybe just in a few seconds. Basically, let's try to make a box again. Actually, let's make a spherical. Okay. Let's make a sphere. So first we start with a circle. Oh yeah, I didn't teach you guys how to make spheres. Okay, essentially you need a circle, right? And then you need to have a, you need to know this specific command called revolve. If you type revolve here, so since my shape is already selected, so revolve, and yeah, I'm gonna select my curve to revolve, just like every other step, because you need a curve to work with. So press enter when done. So you start of the revolve axis, since this is a circle, it really doesn't matter. So I can actually start anywhere I want. But notice that my second point, so that was my first point. My second point has to be perpendicular, which is represented by the perp here. So now that I know it's perpendicular, basically this means the diameter of the circle. And now you can see that you have this half circle swing around like that, and you also have a full circle. So if you look at it carefully, you can actually see how the thing works, but it might look very complicated. Basically, all you have to do is that hold your left mouse and drag, and now you can see how the surface is being created, right? So kind of like closing and opening, because you have your semicircle here, essentially like that. So it starts from a 2D shape, which is kind of looks like that. And it essentially revolved around your axis. And then you can go all the way back and close it up like that. Like that. It's kind of closed up, not really. But yeah, so that's how the command works. And if we look at a different shape, so let's say very spiky shape, that. Sure. Yeah, like that. And we connect the endpoints like a straight line. So we can try a revolve command. Select your curves. Actually, let's join them. Oh yeah, if you have two curves, there's a very simple command to merge them into one. Just select them both and type join. Now it says two curves run into one closed curve. And when you select, well, part of it, the entire curve gets selected. Okay, so if we try to revolve on this spiky curve that we made here, you have, again, you start a revolve axis. If I make the revolve axis here as such, you can see that kind of a similar thing appears. So you have your 2D spike, your 2D curve here, but you also have, not but, and you also have your circle here. We can start from 0, like here. And again, you can see how this shape is being created. So it's kind of like a vase, like that. And then you can close it up like that. Oh, it didn't close. Okay, now it closed. So to execute the command, you just have to press enter. Oh, it looks like a chess piece, but yeah. And notice a very well, I guess strange thing about revolve is that if I move this, so when you first see this curve, it looks like all sharp, but when you revolve it, the edges actually become quite circular. See, you have your 2D curve here. So this edge essentially gets revolved around your axis like that. So revolve, and then you have your shape here. So yeah, if you want to create some circular shapes using revolve, but yeah, let's go back to the sphere. It's a little off topic. So sphere, revolve. Make sure you get your axis correct, like that perpendicular axis. Start from a certain point. So let's start from here. Go 360 degrees. Make sure that your cursor ends up on your original point, and then press enter. So now you have your sphere. And basically, I wanted to talk about cross sections. Okay, I'm gonna try to figure out the cool way to do this while we take our second break. But basically, a cross section is kind of like if you cut, let's say you're cutting a cake. your cake is probably going to look something like that, right? Like that, and cap here. This is going to be your cake. It's a very bad cake, but when you cut it, what do you get? You get a, how do I, you kind of get a sharp opening. Let me just cut this. Let's say we want to cut the cake in half. So from here, here, and we're going to learn about how to cut stuff later. But this is just your cake cut in half. There we go. So now your cake is cut in half. And then you can see how it's pretty weird that the cross section, this is called a cross section of your cake, is actually a rectangle. Let me show this just so we can move it out. Yeah, so you can see how if you move out your center, essentially, of your cake, it actually is a rectangle. And this is because, well, actually, I don't know why this is a rectangle, but yeah, so you can analyze different shapes and find out their cross sections. And then now if you understand what a cross section is, I'm gonna explain it later. But this is the basic idea of a cross section. And what sweep is? Okay, let's go back to sweep. Off topic. Sweep. So let's go back to our delete all of this. Actually, let's just make it smaller. Go down here. Okay. Let's say we have our curve here. So for sweep 1, you're gonna need 2 curves. Our average curve here. And we have another curve. Let's make it a circle. So we have a circle like that. And then let's move it 90 degrees. So that's standing up. Actually, move 90 degrees over here. Okay, then let's so the setup process is you move this any point on your sphere onto your end of your other line. So now it looks like that. And basically, if we use sweep 1, so enter, you're gonna select your rail. So what is a rail? Is that let's say, let's do the command first. So yeah.
Can you explain how to do the rotate 90 degrees again?
Okay, yeah. So rotate 90 degrees. All right, so you have your circle here. Circle? Oh, you can talk. There's no problem with talking. It's fine if you talk. Basically, you have your circle here, right? You can type circle here. Or there's a shortcut here where it says circle center radius. So you click that and you type the command revolve. So you're selecting, essentially, you're selecting your center, your circle to revolve that, right? And now you have your axis. This axis, it doesn't really matter. Well, actually, just select mid. So mid here into where it says end perpendicular. So click that. And now you can see that, oh yeah, by the way, this is your radius. So if you know about a circle, basically any point on the given circle, you can have a lot of radiuses like that. And if you're trying to make a sphere, all of them should work. So in this case, like that and that. And if we do revolve, select your circle, enter. Your revolve axis could be along this line, or it could be along this line, or it could be along other lines. So we have our axis here. And basically, you just need to start from a good reference point, which is preferably a point on your sphere. So somewhere here. And then you can see that when you move your cursor like that, it's kind of closing in on itself. And now if you go back to your original point, actually this is a little different. You put your mouth on it, you put your cursor on it, and then you press shift. Now the command closes off and you have a sphere. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, but then like, you know how you rotated the circle like from a 2D to the 3D? How do you do that?
Oh, you mean revolve?
Like
that, oops.
no, like you wrote like in the example that you're working on previously, like how you rotated, like you type like
this,
90 or
okay,
something.
okay. So basically when you make something, it's in 2D. Let's get rid of this so it doesn't get too complicated. If you have a circle like that, you, so I want it like that, right? All you have to do is, you can think of it as you have, let's say you have, oh, I have ruler here if you want. So right, when you make your circle, it's gonna be like that. But I just want to rotate it so that it ends up like this, that. And this is, we just have to use the rotate command. And same as scale, there are many ways to rotate an object, but the easiest way is if you have gumball on, that, okay, gumball on, you have these quarter of a circle or arcs here that you could just either click, type 90 like that, enter, and it's gonna be rotated, or you can drag it. So if you drag it, it's more kind of eyeballing. And if you want exactly 90 degrees, just hold shift like that. And I'm gonna go over the rotate commands later. I'm just gonna put a note in my reminder. Yeah, we're gonna go over it later. So where is it? Work on, that's after break. Rotate commands, okay. So does that answer your question? Basically, you just have to
Yeah.
utilize your gumball. And you can also, you don't have to do 90, you can do like, I don't know, like 370 if you want, if that's your favorite number.
All right.
Yeah. Okay. And cut the object. Okay, I'm gonna do that after I do sweep, if that's okay with you. So I'll do split and cut after this. Oh, Mr. What are we talking about? Oh, David, can you send a YouTube link for downloading the app in the chat because someone is asking for it? Thank you. Okay, so let's go back to sweep.
I
And
don't see the question, so they're probably private messaging you.
yeah, they messaged me. Just put the YouTube link in the chat. I think it's in our Discord somewhere. Okay, so for sweep one, enter, select your rail. So this would be your rail, and you will understand why. And the other one will be your cross section. Oh, or it's called your sweep shape. I don't know why. It used to be called cross section. Sweep shape. So now that the two curves that I made earlier, before we did all of the spear and cake stuff, are here, right? You can press enter. And this doesn't matter, enter again. Okay. And now we have like this tunnel thing, right? And we can move around in. So you can make some, I guess, really cool animations actually. Like people do this, they can zoom in like that, but I don't have a movable camera right now. So yeah, and let's analyze this shape. So where did it came from? Basically, okay, let's move it out, delete the circle here. You can think of it as, so we have a railing. And basically the command for sweep one, essentially it uses this cross-section shape that we have. And it kind of just makes copies of it. So I can demonstrate that very roughly though, by, let's say we make a copy like that. And along the curve, it kind of changes. So there's another copy. And another copy here. Yeah, and now, and then it goes all along your railing. And then it lofts them together. But there are a lot more numbers of circles that I have here. So you can see, actually you can use the pixel lines here. So there's like one circle here, another circle here. It basically copies essentially an infinite amount of number of your circles and drags them along your railing. Then it connects them and creates the tunnel shape you see here. And yeah, this is just a brief, this is a very AI directed command, because you essentially what you're doing is that you're making you're making two shapes. See, all you have, all your inputs into the command is this rilling and the shape, and the AI just does it all for you. So, and if you're understanding this, great. If you're not, it's okay, because this is very difficult to understand. So now we're going to go into trim and split. And let me just open up a new dot. Actually, I can do it here. It's fine. Let me make a rectangle. So this is our work plane. Okay. So this is going to be our last thing of the day, because I know you guys are probably tired from all the loft and sweep things. But basically, so let me just look at the question again, how to cut objects again. Okay. Okay. When you have, let's say, we start from a very simple box. Okay. So for a box, if you want to cut it in half, I like to make this kind of comparison. Let's say, yeah, like the cake. I like cake. So basically, you're making a knife and you're cutting whatever object that it is. Let's so if we want to cut the, let's say we want to cut the box in half, right? We would need to make a knife that splits the box in half. You know what I mean? And we can do that by just simply like drawing a line. So like that. So I just literally just drew a line between the midpoints, right? And then you can actually, so that is where your box is going to be cut. And you can use the extrude command if you remember over here. You can actually extrude a line as well, but it just turns into a surface. So when you have, say, a rectangle here, small rectangle, extrude, curve up, turns into, oh, actually make it close. Solid no, okay. See, turns into this shape, a not closed rectangular prism. But if you have a line, whoops, line, and you do the extrude curve, you see that turns into a surface. And this is essentially what we're doing right here. So the idea behind this is that you create your line first and use extrude curve. So we can see this is kind of like a transparent view. You can see how your line starting from the beginning kind of gets extruded into the C direction, and it turns into this surface. Okay, now let's actually delete this. It's fine, I'll make it later. And now you have your surface here, right? Which is outlined by this yellow box, this yellow box. You can scale this up actually, because we want our knife to be kind of bigger than the shape. You know what I mean? Actually, I'm kind of talking nonsense now, but scale, we learned all the way back here with the box. You can make the knife a lot bigger. So scale, base point is going to be actually anywhere, it doesn't matter, but it's preferably here. So you can scale this out, say, nah, that's a little too much. So like that. And then you can move this around. So now you have your knife, right? But the shape is still one. Basically, you want to execute this command called split, which by meaning, it just means to split. So, but before you do that, just double check that you have your knife and you have the shape that you want to split. So we're gonna type split, and it has a lot of steps. The first step is select objects to split. You select your rectangular prism here, because that's the thing you want to cut in half, right? And you're going to press enter, and your cutting object is always going to be your knife, or in this case, your plane over your surface over here. So you select that, and then you enter, and your computer is going to do the dot thing, and it's going to tell you that, oops. Oh. Okay, it says one poly surface split it into two pieces. Okay, and now you can see before your rectangular prism was as one, now it's split it into two. And at this point, you can just delete your surface here, or let me just actually, I might need this, actually, just move it away. Okay, so you can see that this line here indicates that it's been cut in half. And now if we move this over here, you can see that your thing has been cut in half. So that's a very, very, very basic overview of a split. And if you want two boxes, like you can just cap it. So cap this, created a cap over it, and this one as well. So yeah, so that's how you split stuff. And you split is a really, really universal command. And that means that you can use it on anything, 2D or 3D. Basically, if you have, so that was a 3D split, but if you have a surface, this is where we bring back the surface here. And you can draw circles. Let's say 1 circle, 2 circles, like that. And we want to cut a hole in it. So would cut a hole in kind of like your working place here, right? You just have to execute command split, select your objects to split. So in this case, it is your surface plane. So click this, enter, cutting, select your cutting objects, which are the 2 circular curves you have here. And now you've selected everything, you just press enter. Oh, now you can see it. So this is one surface split into 3 pieces. And the 3 pieces are this one here, and this one. And now you can actually delete this. And you'll see that the surface has holes in it. And this is because the curves right here, these curves, these circular curves, they basically cut your mat. Okay, so that's split. And if you have a really complicated shape, let's say, let's use this. This is a good example. Okay, move here, here, move it up a bit. Okay, when you have this shape here, and this is why I saved it, because our knife here still has uses. So we can cut it here. You can see that we have our tunnel here, right? But we also have our knife. And you actually split it. So execute split, select objects to split. So in this case, we want to cut our tunnels in half. And what you might ask, like, what happens if we mess up the order, right? So by that, I mean split, and your object to split, you misclicked or something, or you didn't really get which one to split and which one to cut. And you select your knife as your object to split. And then your tunnel as your knife, if that sounds, if that makes sense. You actually see that when you move away the tunnel thing, your tunnel basically cut a circular hole in your mat. So that's what happens. But if we want to do it the right way, which means cutting the tunnel in half, we have to select your tunnel to be the objects that's splitted. Enter. Cutting objects, always a knife. Enter. Now you can see that one surface split into 2 pieces. So we have one piece of our tunnel, another piece. So that's splitting things. And I'm getting must the cutting surface be these 3 objects. Okay, 3D object. Let me think. Because this kind of concerns I don't know if let's actually try. If you want to, okay, let's cut the tunnel in half, except let's do it with a box this time. Like, can the box be cut by a tube? Yeah, I see what you mean. Okay. So yeah, that's actually a good example. So let's see this over here. Let's just adjust accordingly. Like that. And like that. Here. And let's say we kind of want want holes here. And here, but you can't really see it. We can also execute split. So select your objects to split. So in this case, you want to cut the box, right? Enter, cutting objects, or I guess your knife, but it's a very bad representation of a knife because it's a tube. So cut your cutting objects, enter, and yeah, the command executed. And you can see that these holes in here, And if you zoom really close here, you can see that this circular shape is also cut off. And that leaves you with this, whatever this is. But yeah, the command works. What if I want the cutting to go? Yeah, so that's oh, it is. If that does that, yeah, that hope, yeah, that answers Rachel's question. Does that answer Edith's question?
No, I was thinking like, what if I want like a cutting that's like curved, not like flat?
Okay, I think you're talking about carving. So okay, I will. Yeah, I know what you mean now. So there's actually sorry, just let me think for a second, because if you want to make a, let's get rid of these. I'm gonna make kind of a, let's not make it too complicated. Let's just do a revolve. Let's get our axis here. Well, we have this a little smaller. So essentially, if you want this to be your knife, it should also work, but it depends on the situation. So let's just try with this one, because it's two kind of complicated shapes. Well, relatively complicated shapes compared to what we did with the box and the knife, right? Split objects is split that. Cutting objects, that's your knife. And also worked. So if we delete this, you can see that it made that. But the problem with that is there's only a 2D surface that's cut. If you want, let's say, an indent, so that means, let's say I have my, I don't know, I have my box, I have my thing here, right? And I like smash it really hard and make an indent. This is like kind of like you need to keep your knife. And what I mean by that is that you have to do another, how do I explain this? You have to do another split, basically. You have your surface here, right? Which is the part of the box. Okay, it's okay if I'm just explaining this, and it's okay if you don't understand this. I'm just trying to answer Edith's question. Basically, you need to kind of, okay, there are two ways. Let me make this longer, actually. Make this, let's undo the split, make this a lot larger. So I want to see. I want you guys to see the different ways we can make that. So there's one way, which split cutting object is that, and you just, let's move it over here. You just delete the surface, right? So you can see inside. So it's like cutting a hole. But there's also another way that if you want this to be filled in, you can, well, do split again. Cutting object is that. And now you have your surfaces here that we deleted in our first example, right? But we can split. Okay, this is going to sound a little confusing. We can split this shape with the shape here. And what that will look like is actually we need to make it larger. We need to make this larger as such. So we can split your object with your surface here. And basically, if we delete everything here, you can see that there's a indent here. And this is how you leave a 3D hole in the 2D object. And if you don't understand this, it's fine. I do understand you're trying to like ask very high level questions, but yeah, this is how you do it. Is this what you mean?
Yep, that's exactly what I meant.
Yeah, okay. And if you don't understand this, you can watch the recording, or next time I'll talk about this. But yeah, I think we're running a bit out of time. Yeah, so like you can make a hole or make an indent. You just have to keep your knife things. Yeah. And if you have any questions, you can like just ask me. And one last thing before we end our session here, just to leave the Discord. I actually don't have the Discord link. David, can you put a Discord link in the chat? And if you have Discord, you're welcome to join. If you don't, it's fine. I'm still gonna send everything, every file into your emails. But if you don't have my email, actually, I think I have everyone's email here. Did everyone get the exercise from their emails? Or I think it should be fine. I guess that's it for today. What do I want to talk about? Hold up.
Can you re-explain the split part?
The split part.
Or like the
Which
tunnel?
the tunnel part. Okay. You
Like
mean
you have the tunnel thing and then you put it like through the box and then like the split. Yeah. Can you
Okay.
re-explain that?
Yeah, for sure. So ignore this, actually, ignore the whole cap. Can I cap this? No. Oh, I did. Okay, cool. Well, I can cap that. Okay, so now you see that I have my tunnel and it's going through the box. Basically, you can think of it as you have a circle here. I think the email only includes it. Well, so does that mean I don't have your email? Do you mind dropping it privately for me? I'll save it after. Okay, basically you have your tunnel here and it's going through the box. And when you use the command split, so you're cutting the box with your tunnel. Or you can do both ways, or you can cut the tunnel, but right now we're doing cutting the box. So select your objects to split. This basically means what is going to be cut. And we want to cut a hole in this box. So we select the box, we enter, and your cutting object is your tunnel. So we select tunnel, enter. And now you can see that the box has been split into 3 pieces, right? So if we delete the tunnel, you can see that the tunnel left marks in here. And this is actually, you can visualize this. If we assume that the box is paper and the tunnel is your finger and you poke a hole in it, right? This is what it's going to look like. Essentially like that, because you've poked a hole in it. But what we're doing here is that this is going to be your knife, and you're using this very sharp object to poke a hole in the box. If that makes any sense. That's it. I can explain this next time, because I'm not really prepared for this, because I might make a demonstration. But that's that's essentially split. And even if you don't get this, it's fine. As long as Matthew, you get our first demonstration, which was you have a box here, right? The box here, and you have your knife here. Let's make it bigger. Oops, why is it over there? Move it here to here. Okay, make it a lot bigger actually. So you have your knife here, which is just a surface plane rotated, and then very cool visualization. Like you cut this in half. And this is basically executed by doing split command. Use object to split. That's your object to split. Enter. And your cutting object is your knife, which, well, this looks like a knife. Click that, enter. And now you can see if you delete the knife, or actually let's just delete it. See how it left this mark here, right? And these are 2 separate surfaces. So yeah, that's all you need to understand for next time. We're gonna be doing like a kind of like a mini practice and assignment next time. And you can play around with it, like see what you can split or where you cannot split. So yeah, so that's everything. Does anyone else have any questions? Oh, I didn't get Edith's email. I think the email only includes meeting link. Not interesting. And if you don't get these, does that mean you don't have to practice this? I think I do have them in Zoom chat. I'll just send them again. Oops. Zoom chat or Zoom chat here. Okay. That, yeah, so these are for you to play around with and work with. I'll give it a second for everyone to get. Okay, so yeah, so I think that's everything for today. If no one has any questions, we're gonna I guess we'll see you next week. And if you have any questions, I guess in the upcoming week, you can email me. I respond to my emails, and I also respond to my Discord if you do have Discord. So yeah, and next week when you come back, it's going to be the same meeting link. you can check your email history, or I'm gonna send the link again. So yeah, so thanks everyone for coming, and have a great rest of your Friday.
Bye. Thank you.
Bye. Thanks, David, for coming.
Yay. Now I have to go to my other class.
I gotta drink water.
All right, bye.
Bye bye. Have a good day.